Hello, second graders. Mr. Saul here once again. This week, or today, we're going to be talking about fast and slow changes. Once again, in science, we're studying all about the Earth and Mother Nature. So let's go ahead and switch over to Florida Virtual Learning School, and we can go through this module together. There'll be some places where your teachers will be able to take over and talk about some activities or make some predictions or answer some questions. All right, so fast and slow changes. Hi friends, it's Lance again, or should I say Gardener Lance. Today we're going to talk about gardens. These beautiful collections of flowers, plants, or vegetables can be found almost anywhere. You might even have a garden in your own backyard. I know I sure do. The thing about gardens is they need nature to survive. Nature brings the sun and the rain which gardens need to grow. Gardens need just the right amount, too much or too little, and dun dun dun, they could die. Let's hope that doesn't happen. So we should be able to identify if a change to the Earth's surface happened fast or slow, and we should be able to make observations about fast and slow changes on the Earth's surface. Nature is the boss. Natural things such as wind and rain are called natural processes. Natural processes are actions made by nature. Natural processes are not actions made by humans. Remember that an action is something that is done like running, jumping, and pouring. Take a look at these two pictures. Which one is showing a natural process? So in both pictures, we see that the plants are getting watered, right? But in one picture, is a natural process where it's actually raining. That is correct. This picture shows rain, which is a natural process because nature is watering the grass. Whereas in this one, we can see that the little girl is holding a water can to water the plants. A sandy example. What is the best part of going to the beach? Building sandcastles. But have you ever wondered where all that sand comes from? If you scoop up a handful of sand and look really close, you would see hundreds of small glittery pieces. Those pieces were once part of larger rocks. Sand is formed over a long period of time through natural processes. Water and wind change the shape of rocks by breaking them up into smaller pieces. Let's watch this video and see how you can make sand by rubbing rocks against each other.
Watch what happens when we rub two sandstones together. See these tiny bits of grains falling from the sandstones? That's sand. If you keep rubbing the sandstones together, the shape will start to change. After a while, the sandstones become very smooth. In nature, water and wind rub against the rocks, or make the rocks rub against each other. This changes the shape of the rocks and breaks them up into smaller pieces. Then you have sand.
All right. So a really fun activity that you might do at home is to follow the directions for the Making Sand activity sheet, and you can see what changes you can make happen by rubbing stones together. All right, welcome to Lance's garden. Gardens can have all sorts of plant life: flowers, vegetables, fruits, herbs, and sometimes weeds. All sorts of changes are happening in Lance's garden. Let's take a look at what kind of change nature had in mind for his garden overnight. Lance loves nature and enjoys taking care of his garden. Lance looks at all the changes the storm caused in his garden the next morning. Oh, I see. So the first day, it looks very nice and clean. All of the berries are on his trees, the birdhouse, all his plants are standing up nice. But then, if we look down here, we can see a lot of things are different the next morning. It was very windy and rainy last night. Do you think the rain and wind made changes to my garden? Let's find out. Let's help Lance observe any changes from the wind and rain from the storm last night. Select the changes in Lance's garden made from the storm. The wind made the berries fall off the bush and onto the ground. It rained so much that puddles started forming. The wind broke the tree branch. So we have a lot of storms, especially here in Tennessee, and a lot of the time we can see a lot of these big storms will have major changes. Sometimes trees will fall down. Sometimes a creek might have a lot more water. Sometimes the puddles will form, and even those puddles can get bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's what we call a flood. So Lance is showing us a lot of really great stuff. Let's look at some more pictures of these big changes. So an earthquake, for example, can cause a road to crack. A storm can cause trees to fall down, and it can rain so much that a street can become flooded with water. There are also slow changes to the Earth's surface. Not all changes that happen are super fast, like from a storm or a flood or an earthquake. Some of them are very slow and can happen over days, months, or even years. Wind and rain and other natural processes make these slow changes. So we're going to use our slider here to see, and here we can see the roots from the tree growing. Sometimes you guys can see this. If you're walking on the sidewalk, you'll see that a tree's roots are pushing out and through. Over here, we see that the rocks are being eroded by the wind and the rain. And here we can see how the movement of the stream starts out straight and then eventually starts to curve, move the rocks out of the way, and sort of meander back and forth. All right, choose one of the options below. If you have extra time, you can do both. Option 1, plant a small tree or other plant and watch as it grows and changes slowly. Make observations at least once a week. And the other option you could do is identify and observe an area outside. Make observations of the area and draw or take a picture of it. Go back to the same area after a month. Observe again and draw or take a picture of the same area. Do you see any changes? So the goal of this is that they want us to see if the world is changing around us. And sometimes you can see it pretty quick, like if a bean plant is growing. And other times it's pretty slow, like if a tree is changing colors from different times of the year. All right. So we've seen a lot of examples of fast and slow changes to the Earth's surface. Let's identify some fast and slow changes in this activity real quick. All right, on the Earth's surface, some changes are blank and some changes are blank. Fast and slow, of course. All right, an example of a slow change would a street flooding in a storm, a tree falling in a storm, a volcanic eruption, or a tree growing be a slow change? Well, if you said a street flooding, a tree falling, or a volcanic eruption, all of those are pretty fast changes that you can watch them happening and actually see the difference from one moment to the next. But a tree growing is something that happens so slowly, it's almost impossible for us to see it happening. So I'm going to say a tree growing is a slow change. Very good. All right, an example of a fast change would be something, would it be the leaves changing colors, flowers growing, an earthquake, or soil drying up and cracking? So we're looking for something that's fast. I know that the leaves change colors. It takes almost a month and a half for that to happen. So that's pretty slow. Same thing for flowers growing. That can take a long time. Also, soil drying and cracking up, that will take a long time too. You might not even notice a difference from day to day. But an earthquake, that's a very fast difference. From one moment to the next, your whole world can change in an earthquake. Very good. An example of a slow change. So what natural process would be a slow change? A stormy night, a rainy day, an earthquake, or a crack in the road? So what they say by a crack in the road, they don't mean the kind that comes from an earthquake. They mean the kind that comes from weathering and erosion. So I'm going to say a crack in the road for that one. Correct. A crack in the road is a good example of a slow change. Air, rain, sun, and cars can cause a crack in the road over a longer period of time. All right, finally, an example of a fast change is Wind and rain breaking rocks into smaller pieces, a stream getting wider and wider, a tree growing, or wind moving sand into piles. All right, so this one is actually kind of hard because they're trying to make us think a little bit. Wind and rain breaking rocks into smaller pieces. We know that rocks are actually pretty hard, right? So wind and rain, those are kind of soft. It would take a very long time for wind or rain to break a rock into smaller pieces. A stream getting wider and wider, once again, that's something that's going to take years and years for enough water to flow through to make it get wider and wider. And again, the same thing with a tree moving. A tree growing will take a very long time to grow. But wind moving sand into piles, this is a process that might be going on for a long time, but also I can watch and see sand being moved by the wind. So even though it can happen over a long time, it can also be a pretty quick process. It's a fast change. All right, let's keep going. Is the change fast or slow? Changes on the Earth's surface are happening every day, whether you notice it or not. It can be hard to see slow changes like a plant growing or the fading of pavement because they happen over a long period of time. When they say the fading of pavement, they mean that after a road is brand new, it's like dark, dark black. But then after a few years, if you look at that same road, it's gone from being dark, dark black to sort of a light gray, a charcoal gray. That's because that change happened from the sun shining it all the time, which will lighten that color. All right, so fast changes are much easier to notice because they happen before your very eyes. It is hard to miss seeing the changes from a big storm, like flooded streets and fallen trees. You guys know all about this because we just had a big storm in Nashville back in March, and that caused a lot of very fast changes. All right, what is this a picture of? This is a cornfield. As you can see, the corn is all dried up. Do you think that this is a fast or slow change? Rough water. Look at the ship and the waves. The ship is going up and down on the rough water. Do you think the change in this water happened fast or slow? Plants growing through bricks. Look closely at this picture. You are actually looking at a brick pathway. As you can see, the plants are growing up between the rocks. Do you think that this was fast or slow? And finally, a deep crack in the ground. An earthquake caused the ground to crack. Do you think that this was a fast or a slow change? Now remember, if it was an earthquake, from one moment to the next, you could see the difference, which means that this was a fast change. Sorting fast and slow changes. Being able to identify a change in the Earth's surface is a very useful skill to have. Think about when you plant seeds in a garden. If you did not know that a plant takes a while to grow, then you might think you did something wrong. What really happened is that the plant is growing in a slow change. So you need to wait some time before you see it come out of the ground. See if you can sort some of the other changes as fast or slow. An eroding cliff near a house. Would that be a fast or a slow change? I'm going to say that that would be slow because it takes a long time for that water to wash away the sand. A stormy day at the beach, that's going to be pretty fast, just like an erupting volcano. Nice work. All right, Lance really enjoyed exploring fast and slow changes with you. You learned that changes to the Earth's surface can be fast, like the ones in Lance's garden after a rainy day and a windy night. Changes to the Earth can also be slow, like cracks in the road. The Earth is such an interesting place. So by now, you should be able to identify if a change to the Earth's surface happened fast or slow and make observations about fast and slow changes. Let's do a quick review. It's time to show off how much we've learned. Which picture shows a slow change to the Earth's surface? Cracked road from an earthquake, tornado damaging trees and buildings, sand moving in the wind, or a small plant growing bigger. That's right, a small plant growing bigger is going to be the slow change. All these other ones can happen pretty fast. Which picture shows a fast change? Is it the dry and cracked soil, a rock cracking from wind and rain, puddles on a dirt road, or trees changing with falling leaves? Which one would be a fast change? Would it be the puddles on the dirt road? Correct. Puddles from a heavy rainfall is a fast change. All right. So at this point, you guys will be able to take the quiz with your teacher, and I will check back in with you guys later on for another exciting science lesson. Have a great day.